On today's episode of Anime Afterthought Made in Abyss Season 2, Episode 9, The Return. Now that we know Faputa's desires, I've been contemplating one question. What exactly does she intend to do, and what does the eradication of Iroboro actually entail? Does anyone want to discuss how fucking manipulative of a series Made in Abyss is? I mean, we're forced to sit here and watch helplessly as we bear witness to Iramui's final soul-shattering moments. So how can you not sympathize with this little girl who is a literal lamb to slaughter? And now her daughter comes seeking revenge, seeking punishment for all those who have wronged her mother. And this is the source of my current internal conflict. Because while I can sympathize with Iramui and Faputa, at the same time, I empathize with the innocence of Iroboro, those captivated and lured by the abyss, who are no longer able to continue their journey and call Iroboro home. Basically, everyone besides the members of Ganja, because those lot knowingly accepted their fate when they passed the threshold of Iroboro. But what of those who were merely seeking refuge after the 150 years since its creation? Faputa has made it abundantly clear that the eradication of everyone is her goal, and that is why I'm conflicted. Way to weaponize a moral and ethical dilemma. Bravo, Made in Abyss, bravo. But there is one individual who gets none of my empathy or sympathy, and that is Wazukain. So a lot of stuff in the second season is left up to interpretations. We really don't know what's going on when it comes to characters' overall motivations, especially when we're dealing with wish-granting eggs. Essentially, the series is asking us to make our own narrative. For some, they optimistically believe that this was Iramui's true desire, while others believe that Wazukain was the puppet master pulling the strings behind the scene. And for the latter, you're left to reconcile these actions because they were for the greater good. Well, that was until one brazen, definitely naive girl uncovered the truth. I still can't comprehend how her brain works because she's able to jump to the conclusion that it wasn't an act of altruism to create this safe haven for those who are no longer able to return to the surface, but in fact was his selfish desire to continue his journey and find the true golden city. And get this, Wazukain actually admits it. Surprised it took 150 years to figure him out, but yeah, those were his true intentions all along. So, knowing what we know now, looking back, how does that make you feel? That the horrendous acts committed in the name of altruism, but were in fact self-serving, self-centered, and just plain selfish. Fuck you, Wazukain, you are a piece of shit, and I hope you die. That being said, I can't say the same for Ma or Mugi or any of the innocents. Like I said, there's like this emotional tug of war happening in my brain. Like, I understand and I want Faputa to get her vengeance. I want Iramui to be free, but I also like Ma and Mugi, unless we forget Midi, because Midi is a creation of Iroboro. So if Iroboro is gone, doesn't that also mean Midi goes with her? Like, I mean, my thinking is so hypocritical, right? Like, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. But this is Made in Abyss, so unfortunately, happily ever after is off the table. I mean, what do you think this is? A dream? Speaking of dreams, I like the thought of running parallel to Veiko's flashbacks. Bailoff was feeding his own memories to Nanachi while she laid next to Midi in her comatose-like state. I mean, Bailoff is another one of those characters where I'm coming to the realization that I may have been too quick to judge. I mean, his present-day introduction is this giant snake-like monster that is sucking the life out of Midi, another character that we inevitably empathize and sympathize with. So at first glance, yes, Bailoff bad, right? And here's where my train of thought begins to diverge. So let's say Bailoff's true desire was to be judged and punished, and he got exactly what he wanted, right? His punishment just happened to turn him into his physical embodiment of guilt, right? What was he so guilty about? Eating the vivisected children of Iramui, who is now forced to suck the nutrients out of other creatures for eternity. So along comes Bondrude and Midi. He sees a creature with immortality, something he can nourish himself with, and yet no one else, including said creature, would die. I don't know, maybe I'm just giving him too much credit, but last week's episode, seeing him go through that mental breakdown, I'm just starting to see him in a different light. I don't know, Besides Vaco, he was the only one with actual concern, you know, plagued over guilt of what he was doing. I mean, in a do or die situation, it's just, I mean, what the fuck do you do? What the fuck do you do? Now let's talk about Vaco and the influence she has over Iroburu. Now we learned in today's episode that Jirarimo was the physical manifestation of the city's will, and it's based upon Vaco's memories of her abusive adopted father. Let me repeat myself. The man who raped and tortured a little child is now protecting the village and its inhabitants. I mean, I understand the design now. If this is supposed to be a representation of how Vaco saw her adopted father, it fucking makes sense. You know, the anus chest and the dildo sword and those I'm gonna get you type lips. It leads me to wonder how else Vaco has affected Iroburu. I mean, we know for a fact she was so fixated on the idea of value, right? Trying to find her purpose, her worth in life. Could she be behind the mechanism of the balancing? I mean, this series just asks the world of its viewer. It's like, here is a little bit of information. Go fucking wild, invent these crazy theories and jump to conclusions. You're gonna have a blast. And honestly, I am. The more I think about what possibly could be going on, the more I find myself absorbed into the series. There's typically 3 things I can ask of a series. Either 1, have likable characters. 2, make me think. Or 3, get my blood pumping with some badass action. And honestly, Made in Abyss is checking all these boxes, especially given today's episode. I mean, how absolutely badass was Faputa's entrance? And then that fucking monologue? Not to mention the way they decided to end the scene with that iconic freeze frame where they're just about to clash. Like, my god, was that sequence fucking amazing. Not to mention showing off her powers and why they refer to her as the immortal princess. I really want to know what happened between her and her brother. And like, are they inside of her now? Or did they just heal her and go? Like, I don't know. I mean, we have 3 episodes left, right? So fuck it, let them sparks fly. I want to see a climactic battle where Faputa just unleashes 150 years of pure fucking rage. All the meanwhile, everyone I come to know and like lives happily ever after? Yeah, I already know we established that's not gonna happen. But I do know one thing for sure. Shit's gonna hit the fan. Well, you know what time it is. Definitely a more tame episode. Let's see how it stacks up on the cringe meter. The guy who used to torture and rape you is now the guardian deity of the village who used to be your surrogate daughter. Yeah, welcome to Made in Abyss. And there we have it. Today's episode is extremely troubling. I mean, what else do you call it when your pedo dad has been reincarnated into a giant kaiju monster and your surrogate granddaughter is out for blood? Plus, it's a little more than just unsettling. Watch Reg outmaneuver Jirarimo, all while carrying a severed arm. This episode holds a lot of implications. We don't know exactly what's going to transpire. We don't even know the results of said potential actions. While nothing explicitly graphic happened in today's episode, I'm still traumatized by the previous and shudder to think about what's on the horizon. Fingers crossed the worst is behind us. Anyways, let's return you to your regular scheduled program. So there we have it, another episode in the annals of Made in Abyss history. What did you guys think? Did you hate it? Did you love it? Do you want some more of it? Well, I do. So with all that being said and more Made in Abyss next week, I honestly cannot wait for future episodes.